Welcome to This Explainer. Look, today we're cracking open the ultimate financial rulebook. We're going to take a highly focused, rapid-fire visual look at how the tax system actually works. I'm moving fast today, changing these visuals every few seconds, so stick with me. We're diving into a topic that literally affects every single one of us, but honestly, it's totally misunderstood by almost everybody. We'll be looking at the exact strategies used by some of the wealthiest people on the planet, and we're doing it by breaking down the raw data, the code itself, and the actual rules.
So let's just start with this kind of jarring reality. What if the more money you made, the smaller percentage you actually paid in taxes? For most of us, the cycle is super straightforward, right? You work all year, you earn your money, and boom, a huge chunk of it vanishes immediately into taxes. It just feels inevitable. But what if I told you some of the richest people on Earth legally pay a lower percentage of tax than a standard middle-class worker? I know, it sounds absolutely impossible, but it's happening every single day. And honestly, we're watching two completely different games being played right in front of us. On one side, you've got earning a traditional salary. On the other side, owning assets. Now, the wealthy aren't usually hiding their money in, secret underground vaults like some movie villain, and they certainly aren't breaking the law. They're just playing an entirely different financial game. Once you see the rules they're following, you'll quickly realize the tax system was never designed the way we think it is.
All right, let's open up the playbook and quickly run through what we're decoding today. First, the great tax mystery. Second, evasion versus legal avoidance. Third, how the wealthy earn differently. Fourth, borrowing instead of selling. And finally, the power of knowledge.
Okay, jumping right into Section 1, the great tax mystery. Picture this. Imagine earning $1 million. Awesome, right? Now imagine, completely legally, paying less tax on that million than someone making 50 grand a year pays on their regular salary. It sounds entirely unfair, doesn't it? Actually, scratch that, it sounds literally impossible. But in a lot of cases across many different countries, it's a completely legal reality. The wealthy have figured out a set of financial rules that, frankly, most of us just never learn. Rules that save thousands, millions, and sometimes even billions over a lifetime.
The wild truth is, it's not magic. They're literally just reading the rules that are hiding in plain sight. Take the US tax code, for example. It's over 6,000 pages long. And spoiler alert, most of it isn't about how to take your money. It's actually a giant map of incentives. These strategies aren't locked away in some offshore account. They are written explicitly into the code. So why doesn't everyone know this? Because we tend to assume there's a secret trick, when really, they just know the public rulebook inside and out.
Which brings us to Section 2. Evasion versus legal avoidance. Look, we have to strictly separate illegal tax evasion from entirely legal tax avoidance. The difference is night and day. Evasion is illegal, period. It's hiding income, it's lying on your returns, it's keeping secret stashes. You do that, you're looking at massive fines or prison time. But tax avoidance, that just means arranging your finances in ways that are totally legal and honestly specifically allowed by the tax code. The richest people in the world, they aren't usually breaking the law, they're mastering legal avoidance. You see, governments intentionally created these incentives to encourage certain behaviors that drive the whole economy. Think about it. Governments want you to invest. They want businesses to grow, they want people to own homes, and they want us to save for retirement. Why? Because the government can't build every house or create every job by itself. So they offer these legal tax discounts to folks who do the heavy lifting for them. When people use property depreciation or fund tax-deferred retirement accounts, they're doing exactly what the government designed the tax code to encourage. The wealthy just happen to utilize these incentives way more effectively. Moving on to Section 3, the wealthy earn differently. Let's look at why your standard paycheck takes such a massive tax hit compared to long-term investment gains. When you earn a salary, the tax man takes his cut immediately, right off the top. But wealthy individuals, they earn a huge chunk of their wealth through investments. And in many countries, those long-term investment gains are taxed at a fundamentally lower rate than everyday employment income. That structural difference alone is huge. It means someone living off assets naturally faces a lower effective tax rate than someone earning the exact same amount punching a clock. Another real game changer? Owning a business. Legitimate business owners get to deduct their operational costs before they even calculate their taxable profit. Think about how wild that is. As an employee, you get taxed on your gross income first, and then you try to pay your living expenses with what's left. But a business owner, they pay for office costs, the equipment, software, marketing, employee salaries, all of it first. Then they only pay taxes on whatever is left over. Now, these have to be legitimate, documented business expenses, of course, but man, it's a profound advantage.
And then there's the magic of tax deferral. The wealthy play the long game. They hold assets for years, even decades, instead of constantly buying and selling. Because here's the trick. If you don't sell, you don't trigger a tax event. That money just sits there, compounding year after year after year, completely untouched by taxes. Over a lifetime, the difference between getting taxed annually versus deferring it into the distant future, it's absolutely enormous. It's a massive long-term snowball effect.
Let's hit section 4, borrowing instead of selling.
So, if selling your assets triggers a huge tax bill, the wealthy ask themselves one very simple question. Well, what if I just don't sell? Think about it. Imagine you're sitting on shares or real estate worth hundreds of millions. You want cash, right? Maybe to buy a yacht, fund a new startup, or just live large. But the second you sell those shares, Uncle Sam wants a massive cut. So what's the workaround?
Okay, here is the step-by-step master play. Step 1, you hold on to your highly appreciating asset. Step 2, you march into a bank and borrow cash, using that exact asset as collateral to secure the loan. And step 3, because you didn't actually sell anything, you completely bypass the taxable sale. You've got the cash in your hand to spend, and your asset just keeps growing in the background. It's brilliant.
The secret sauce here is super simple. Loans are not taxed as income, period. This gives asset-rich folks full access to cash while completely dodging the realization of income. Now, you've probably seen this strategy making headlines lately. It lets them unlock the purchasing power of their wealth without the tax nightmare of liquidating it. Keep in mind, pulling this off requires serious wealth and some highly sophisticated financial planning, but it perfectly illustrates the mechanics of how the rules work at the very top. And of course, this sparks a really fierce ongoing debate. Does our tax code prioritize fairness, or does it prioritize economic growth? Critics forcefully argue that some wealthy folks pay way too little tax relative to their sheer economic power. But on the flip side, supporters argue that these exact incentives are totally necessary, that they're the engine creating businesses, jobs, and innovation. Governments globally are constantly wrestling with where to strike that balance.
Finally, section 5, the power of knowledge. When you boil it all down, the system rewards specific financial actions. No matter where you stand on the whole fairness debate, one thing is objectively true. The tax code is designed to reward behaviors: saving, investing, starting businesses, building assets, contributing to retirement, even charitable giving, where society and the donor both win. The lesson here isn't about finding ways to break the rules. It's about fundamentally understanding what behaviors the rules actually want to reward.
So the absolute biggest takeaway from this explainer, the ultimate wealth-building tool, isn't necessarily capital. It's financial education. The most successful entrepreneurs and investors spend years learning these rules, working closely with top accountants and tax pros. Meanwhile, most of us only think about taxes once a year when we're stressing over filing our returns. The wealthy don't have a magical secret playbook. They just spend a lot more time learning how the game is played. I'll leave you with this final thought. Now that you've seen how the rulebook is actually written, how's it going to change your own financial perspective? Because people who understand these systems naturally make better financial decisions. Next time you hear a rumor about the secrets of the rich, remember this explainer. And remember, knowledge. That's the true asset.